My name is Emmanuel Byamukama, and I'm the extension plant pathologist at South Dakota State University. Now, I also have to state that I'm quite new in South Dakota, but not new to Midwest culture. So I was in Iowa for 5 years and then 3 years in Nebraska. So I have a pretty good feel of Midwest culture. Okay, and that goes with plant diseases, and I think that's why I got the job. So we'll go through some basics of plant disease patterns in the field. We'll talk about 3 major diseases of wheat, and then Bob will take us through some crown and root rot diseases and a little bit of chloride trial that he's been doing. And if we're lucky, we'll get Connie's trunk, who will talk a little more about fungicides and scouting. Okay. So before we go on, I would like to know from you some concerns or issues or observations that you may have as far as plant diseases are concerned. Do you have any disease in particular you want us to talk about, or any comment or suggestions just before we go on?
Any concern with the Fusarium head blight this week?
Okay. All right. So yes, there's a concern of Fusarium head blight, especially beginning this week, because the fields I went through, I really saw quite a bit of Fusarium head blight, and likely it's one of the diseases we'll talk about. So, good point. Any other concerns or observations where you're from in the fields? What are you seeing out there? What's the main concern?
Mine right now is the bacterial leaf blight.
Okay, so the bacterial leaf blight and streak, bacterial leaf streak as well. Yes, that's a big problem, especially when you have wet conditions and like we've had. So yeah, it's not the main disease we're focusing on, but we noticed that's an issue these days. And part of the reason I was discussing with Bob is that fungicide application might make it worse. So this is where we have 2 problems and you can't control them the same way. One way makes the other one worse. So
why is that?
It's one of the theories is that the fungicide has some other ingredients that are added, like surfactants, that may make the leaf more vulnerable to bacterial attack. That's one theory. It has not really been proved. I don't have data to show that, but that's one reason that we think that fungicides may be increasing the problem of bacterial leaf streak. Anything else?
Back east, we're concerned about the soybeans because of the wet soils.
Okay.
They don't like wet feed.
They don't. In fact, we have a news release coming up, I believe, maybe tomorrow, about dumping off of soybeans, which is increased by wet soils. And if planting was done early in the season, then dumping off can be an issue. So so we have a news release and an iGrow article talking about soybean dumping off. Yeah. But for this session, we'll not talk about diseases of soybean. Right. We'll mainly concentrate on wheat.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, so that's good, because since you don't have a lot of issues, that means I can throw your way anything I want and I'll be okay. I will not be off topic. You didn't give me the topics, so anyway. Okay, so the message we really would like you to take home today, at least from plant disease perspective, is that while there are really good tools out there to use to manage the diseases, in order for them to be profitable and sustainable, we really need to do good scouting and disease identification. So if you see leaf streak, bacterial leaf streak, and then you think it's a tan spot and apply fungicide, you're making bacterial leaf streak worse, and you're also not going to make any returns. So there's no value of adding fungicide. Also, if we'll be seeing in our demo plots, if you apply a fungicide when the disease level is still very low or it's not warranted, it's also not paying. You are exposing high risks of fungicide resistance development. You're also knocking off some of the good fungi, the good beneficial fungi. And also for some cases, you may exacerbate the problem of bacterial leaf streak. So that's why we really encourage a lot of scouting, being out in the field and seeing what's there, and then proper diagnosis of what the problem might be. Okay, so with those few introductory remarks, let's dig into the first session, which I am calling plant disease patterns. So when plants get infected in the field, they display various patterns. And these patterns can really help us to kind of narrow down what may be the cause. We call that one an interlude, so yes. So I would like to draw your attention to 3 different scales of looking at disease patterns. So the disease scale, which is the larger scale, the big picture. We want to know the pattern or how plants that are infected in the field are distributed. Okay. Then we also want to know, even on the plants that are infected, where do you find the disease? And even on the plant, we want to know on the leaf what's the pattern of the disease. And the reason of doing this is to help us, first of all, probably know what the cause is, and also to know where the source is coming from. Okay. So today I'm really lucky to have a human tripod stand. So if I'm
A quite handsome one.
yes, thank you. He really does an awesome job. But if I go on and on, you can tell me to take a break. But so let's look at the field scale first. So when you enter a field and you're looking at diseased plants, what pattern are they displaying? Do you see a gradient whereby from the edge of the field, as you move into the field, you're seeing less and less of the disease? What does that tell you about the source of inoculum? Where is the source of the disease coming from? Is it coming from this side or this side of the field, or
From the outside or from out of the field?
out of the field, and probably from the edge, and this edge right there? Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what mode of spread would this be? Would it be a wind? Would it be a soil? Would it be residue? Or what would you think to be the source of inoculum? What would be the mode for this source of inoculum? Would it be wind blown?
Probably wind blown if it's moving across the field.
Okay, okay. So it's moving across the field, but also on a gradient level. It's like as you move across the field, you find less and less plants infected. And in fact, this example is not far stretched. This was a real field. As you can see, you have a lot of yellowed plants, and as you go to through the backward of the picture, at the end of the field, probably half of the field, you get to start seeing more green, right? So this is a good example to tell us that there's a gradient here, and probably it's a wind-blown disease that's infecting the wheat field. And in fact, this was a wheat streak that was infecting this field, and we know very well that wheat streak is spread by mites, which are blown by wind. And we'll talk more about wheat streak disease in wheat. Okay, let's look at this pattern, the second pattern. What do you think is going on here? We have straight strips of plants that have a lot of disease, and the rest of the white areas, they're healthy. So what would you think would be going on in that case?
Is it varietal?
Could be varietal. If a grower grew different varieties, maybe.
That's in what, a soybean field? Is that what that is?
Yeah, this is soybean field. Apart from varieties, what else do you think can cause such clear pattern of, clean pass, and then the other area is
Mechanical.
could be mechanical, could be a faulty sprayer. One pass that covered the plants, and then the plants in between path were not covered by a fungicide. right? Could also be double coverage, maybe too much chemical and you have chemical burn, and we'll see it right here, okay? But if you find this kind of clear pattern of plants that don't look healthy, the first suspect would be chemical, like you put it, or mechanical. Maybe the sprayer, one nozzle is blocked and it's not spraying. So you can see that knowing this kind of a pattern can really help you to narrow down the probable cause of the problem. And in this case, actually, this was a soybean that was not sprayed with a fungicide, and this field was infected by rust, soybean rust, down in Florida. Okay. How about this scenario? We have we have another field here, and we see this clustered area or aggregated area where plants have symptoms, plants are sick, and the rest of the field looks clean. What comes to your mind?
Soil types,
Could be soil type. Anything else?
low area of the field or something?
Yeah, could be a wet spot where the roots were submerged in water, and so there was not enough oxygen, so the plants are yellowing. What else? Anything that comes to your mind? How about soil-borne pathogens? Soil-borne mosaic virus, or take ore of wheat, or crown and root rot? Could it be that since they are soil-borne, they would be in clusters and not the entire field? True. So again, something that can tell you what's going on. When a grower calls me and says, "Oh, I'm seeing these plants in the field," the first question I want him to tell me is, how is the distribution? Is it every other plant, or is it a cluster of plants in one area? So again, kind of helps you, especially when you're deciding what management program, what control you want to apply, to have this in the back of your mind, to help you figure out what could be going on. And then lastly,
Yellow dwarf.
yes,
In a patch.
yeah, barrier dwarf can also be in a patch, because normally those aphids, when they reproduce, they kind of spread. They are spread within a small locality, but those are aphids moving off plants. But the ones which are coming in can be pretty random in the field. Okay, so the last pattern we want to look at is where you see a field is almost everything is diseased. And here the example I have is a wheat field that has a lot of stripe rust. And what you can see is that every plant pretty much is infected. So what comes to your mind about how the disease is spread? Probably by wind, wouldn't you think? So spores are being blown everywhere, and so that's why every plant is infected. So on a field scale, it's really important that we determine the pattern of diseased plants, so that it can help us to narrow down what could be the cause of the disease we are seeing. Okay, so that's the field scale. So now we'd like to look at the plant scale, the individual plant. When you look at this plant, where do you see the symptoms? Okay, if you see symptoms on the crown and the roots, plants probably they are wilting, and then you look down, and only symptoms can be seen on the lower foliage, the lowest foliage possible, and the roots. What comes to your mind about the source of inoculum? Where do you think this disease is coming from? Could it?
Soil.
Right, that would be soil. So if it is soil, probably it's going to be a cluster, again, if you take the field scale. But if you find roots and crown or lower parts of the stem infected, probably the disease is coming from the soil. How can you control this disease? Should you apply a fungicide?
On the seed, maybe?
Well, maybe that's a good point. That probably if you see this a lot on your field, probably the best thing to do is seed treatment and not foliar fungicide, because the foliar fungicide is going to go on the top of the top parts of the plant and will never reach the roots. Okay, so that would be completely a waste of resources. So Again, really important to know this point. Okay, and here I have an example of a take-or disease, which is a soil-borne, and Bob will talk more about it. How about this example here? You go in the field, and the lower foliage, okay, so the lowest foliage and the middle foliage is where you find the disease. And then the top leaves seem to be healthy. What does that tell you?
It's a disease that's in a microclimate.
Right, so probably the microclimate at the base of the plants is providing conducive environment for infection to happen. It's possible that on the upper leaves, which are well aerated, they have a good air circulation, okay? They also are dry, they dry out quickly. Probably that environment is not good for the disease to develop, okay? But how about the source of the disease? If you find that the top leaves look healthy, but the lower leaves are the ones with the disease, what does that tell you about where the disease is coming from?
Yield residue or something out of the soil?
That would be correct. So probably this disease is coming from residue, okay? So again, important to know, this is helping us know the source of inoculum, and also to understand how it is spread. So probably it's a rain splash spread and also coming from the residue. How would you control it? When should you control it? At flowering, should I come and apply a fungicide to kill the fungus or the disease developing the lower foliage? Or should I time this treatment around tillering or other boot? So you can see how the disease pattern is really helping us a lot here. Okay. So if I came in with a fungicide treatment when the plants are already flowering, I don't think that even my fungicide will be able to reach the lower canopy. Okay. Of course, the other question would be, do you really need it? Is it important? Is it important really to try and control this disease when the upper canopy looks clean? It's debatable, but we know that the upper leaves, especially the flag leaf, is the best contributor to yield. Okay. All right. So the last two cases where you have the disease on the top leaves or on the head of the plant. Okay. If you only found the disease on the top part of the leaves and not on the lower parts of the plant, what do you think is going on? Could this be a residue-borne disease?
Probably airborne.
This would most likely be airborne. Thank you for that answer. So what's going on here is you have wind-blowing spores, and most likely they're landing on the top leaves before they can land on the lower leaves. Okay. And the best example here is the cereal rust. So stripe rust, stem rust, and leaf rust. We'll see those. We'll see that more about the rusts. But most of the wind-blown spores are going to infect the upper parts of the plant first before they can spread downwards. So this one would be spreading upwards, while for this case the disease would spread downwards. And for the case of head infections, this is where the pathogen will infect through the flowers or any parts of the wheat head, but does not affect the foliar parts of does not affect the leaves. Okay. Again, trying to draw here your attention to the pattern of the disease on the field, which is a large scale, and on the plant itself. Any questions so far? Any pattern that I've left out that you may be seeing in your field? Okay, so, and I hope you appreciate the importance of trying to understand the disease pattern in the field. Now, let's look at where you find the disease on the leaf itself. Do you find the disease on the upper part of the leaf, and when you turn it, there's nothing? Some of the diseases, like downy mildew of sunflower, you can see the symptoms both on the upper part of the leaves and on the lower part of the leaf, and the two symptoms are different. Okay, so knowing where you find the disease, it can tell us a lot. Can tell us more about the disease. We will be looking at an example of rusts some rust will only will only be more prominent on the upper part of the leaf, but not on the lower part of the leaf. Some of the rust, like stem rust, can affect any part of the plant. So the glooms, the stem, the awns, the sheath, so any part of the plant can be affected. So where you find the disease on the leaf itself can also tell you more about the disease. How about the case where you have a systemic infection? This is where every part of the plant has the disease. What should you do about controlling such a disease? Okay, so in this case, this would be a viral disease, and it's going through the entire plant. And so in this example, then, if you're applying a contact fungicide, for example, to control this kind of symptom, it will be a wastage of time. Okay, so that's why knowing the pattern, knowing how the disease displays itself in the field, on the plant and on the leaf, can help you a lot before you even decide on what management practice to use. So lastly, we want to look at this example where you have the leaf part that is exposed to the sunlight is the one that is diseased in this case. What does that tell you? We see that the other parts have little spots, but this kind of the area where the leaf would be most exposed is where we have the damage. If it was a biological disease, you would expect it to be on the leaf, like in this example, but where you see only specific portions of the leaf diseased and dead all about the same time, that probably tells you it's a chemical burn or a chemical reaction, okay, not a plant pathogen causing this symptom. Okay, so again, reiterating the importance of disease patterns and why they are really important when you're doing scouting, even before you decide on what fungicide to apply. If you have an idea how the pattern is in the field, it can help you to narrow down some of the causes of this problem. All right, so if you don't have any questions, I'm going to suggest that we take a break and go to the field, okay, and try to look at some of these things we talked about. See what disease you can find and where is it found. Is it in the head? Is it lower in the foliage? Is it on the flag leaf? And then we can come back and discuss some more. How about that? Is that okay? All right, so let's head out to the field. And then also, as far as the plot labels go, try to check and see what you can find. Pay attention to the pattern. What do you see? Is it on every plant? Is it on the lower leaves, on the upper leaves, all the leaves, or is it in their wheat head, and so on? Okay?
We walk through the